absolute Knicks streets. The streets are buzzing. The New York Knicks run it up in Philly with a 49-point beatdown. And Jose Alvarado, man, making records out here as the New York Knicks were dishing and swishing all night. One of the best wins on the season, and a win that needed to get right after a tough loss to Indiana last night, man. But heading into All-Star break now, the Knicks are in a solid position at 35-20, and we'll talk about the future and the road ahead, man, as Jose Alvarado splashed in 8 threes, man. 8 of 13, 26 points, plus 35, man. We've got game balls to give out and chats to shout out. Welcome in, everyone. Replay squad. Great to have you with us. We're buzzing, man. And look, after last night, right, double OT last night, it was a game where the Knicks needed to show up, and that they did, man. From the get-go tonight, it was solid. And the New York Knicks, 41 assists on the team, right? Jalen Brunson copped a lot of criticism last night for how he handled some possessions late down the stretch. But tonight, as a team, it was a much more even game, shot distribution, and Jalen Brunson was moving the ball better, and guys were hitting shots at a high level in this one. As we had Jose Alvarado have his best game as a Knick, one of his best games on his career in terms of efficiency, stealing, and a defensive impact. But man, Mohamed Diawara, we're going to talk about him tonight, guys, because he continues to be dynamite and deadly from downtown. And just when you think it's going to come back down and it's going to be a case of like, you know, is he going to start missing shots? But we ain't seeing that at all, man. Mohamed Diawara has been absolutely phenomenal too. We'll get the reactions from the locker room. We'll hear from Jose Alvarado in the walk-off interview as the New York Knicks win 138-89. Just an unbelievable performance, wire to wire, complete domination. No Embiid tonight. Maxey was filling it up for them. However, VJ Edgecombe was cold for most of the night, and the Knicks defense was excellent where you want to see. But overall, I really feel like Philadelphia was looking towards the All-Star break. Maybe the Knicks overlooked Indiana last night and felt the same, but they definitely came with a point to prove tonight, man, and wanted to head into this All-Star break full of momentum. Now, 15 games over 500. We'll take a look at the mathematics in terms of what the Knicks got to do. How many wins and losses, man, to get to 55 wins, right? Obviously, where we are now, we're 55 games through the season already. So we have, 27 left. And the Knicks are going to have to go 20-7, right? 20-7 to finish with 55 wins. But most important, we got the big dub in this one. Karl-Anthony Towns, man, definitely feeling Cat's effort tonight. Most recently, you know, he's been a guy who has copped a lot of criticism as well for his, you know, shot selection last night. You know, Cat was all over the place. It was a really sloppy performance, especially fouling out. But yeah, Cat had a point to prove tonight. He definitely answered the call. Clarkson got some minutes. But yeah, overall, man, I'm just thoroughly impressed with Diawara thus far. Mikal Bridges, solid game last night and good today as well. Josh Hart with the triple-double last night, but obviously it didn't mean anything in the loss. And these are the games that you really need to win, fam. Chez V, love it, man. Love these kind of games. Yeah, no cardiac, man. We're not really going to stew on last night because obviously, you know, we know the team's deficiencies. They have a tendency to turn it on, turn it off, overlook opponents. I do think last night was inexcusable, and you know, it was a game where we did overlook Indiana for the most part, and I just think it was a quintessential trap game. These guys focus more on the road, and that is a case with Brunson. You know, he's talked about it in the past. needing to focus and lock in on the road. But man, it's a happy arena for our New York Knicks, man. MSG South. Uh, well, we have a couple of MSG Souths, but this is definitely one of them, man. Lily Phillips says strong bounce back win and showing against the Sixers after a disappointing loss yesterday. Yeah, good mentality. Quickly put it in the rear view. No win or loss means any more than the next game. Like I said, we dropped one we shouldn't have last night, but you look at who didn't play. No OG, no Mitch, no Deuce last night. Mitch comes back, and just one guy alone can make that much of an impact. But obviously, Jose Alvarado with a much better performance. Same with Jalen Brunson. We've got two game balls to give out, fam. Jose is here, and Karl Anthony Towns, fam, I think deserves it. Both heavy in the plus minus. Cat and Jose Alvarado, man, super efficient. 8 of 13 from Karl Anthony Towns, plus 29. And Jose with his best stat line, plus 35 with 26 points, man, and 5 steals, man. Get that. Let that sink in. 5 steals, 4 dimes, and 8 of 13, 61%, man. He's getting cleaner looks than he's ever had in this kind of team and offense, right? But yeah, Mitch was doing work tonight, man. He was putting on a show. And I think the MVPs of last night were the guys who didn't play, because Mitch, Deuce, and OG, you could make a case for all of them guys being underpaid in terms of just what they bring to our team and what they mean, how important they are, right? We know we've got guys to put up points, guys that can hit the mid-range like Mikal Bridges and play two sides, but Mitchell Robinson, OG, and Deuce are our most important players on the defensive side. But Mitchell Robinson returning, no Embiid, still dealing with the soreness. He didn't want to front up to work tonight against a Mitchie who was fresh and rested. And Mitch was absolutely dominant too. Al Tango, Chris Goddy's in the building. Lily Phillips, Glenn Jones, shout out to Shez V, David Haas. Everyone coming through the building. I see you guys. Blessings, big up. And we've got to see more Knicks basketball, man. Our young rook, right? Definitely deserves to be playing in the All-Star, the Rising Stars game, or whatever festivities are happening in the All-Star break. But I'm just glad our guys, heading in now, feel good win. Some of these guys can put their feet up, man. Head out somewhere, get some sun. And but we've got an update for you, because Jose Alvarado said he ain't having no holiday. Jose Alvarado said he's going to be living in the practice facility, working out with the young fellas, and also getting to know the sets and obviously how the team operates and better acclimate. But look, man, he's already a fan favorite. You play hard, you play at 110%, man. We'll love you, man, as a fan base, right? Wear your heart on your sleeve. Show how important it is to rep the New York Knicks and play for this team, right? This storied franchise. And we had Jose Alvarado with his trademark getting into it, right, tonight. And I will pull up the video, because Jose Alvarado stuck up for Mitch, stuck up for his teammate when Mitchell Robinson got fouled hard by Trendon Watford. And Jose Alvarado did not like that, got into a little scuffle. No punches were thrown. But you'll love to see GTA already, fully immersed in the New York Knicks culture, but obviously bringing more to the table than what we had previously. Had some floor burns last night, but tonight, man, it was razzle dazzle. Man, you see the bench getting giddy, but here it is, Jose Alvarado, man. The rest of the league know, man. He's a smaller dude, but it ain't the size of the dog in the fight, man. It's the size of the fight in the dog. And Jose Alvarado, man, he's throwing punches. So we don't want him suspended, but when things happen, you can't count for what's going to happen in terms of sloppiness from the other team. And we don't need our Mitchie going out with no injuries. So he was letting people know, don't be sloppy, right? And he was trying to stand over Mitch, right? So that sets the tone, man. This is what it's all about in this new Eastern Conference, which I think is heating up, right? We had a couple of scuffles earlier. Well, more than a scuffle between Detroit and Charlotte, and it's about time our New York Knicks step up, right? We're not taking a step back. And you see Hart amongst it as well. Eastern Conference rivals, man. It's a pity Philadelphia's play really wasn't anything to to worry about. But yeah, great game, man. We love it in Philly. Shout out to the fans that travel. Shout out to the fans that obviously are coast to coast on the road. We definitely are, a serious force to be reckoned with. Jason, welcome in. Great to see you. Do I believe the squad can make a run in the playoffs under Mike Brown? Definitely, man. And we're going to talk about the news coming through where Jeremy Sohan has officially been cut. So he's a name, we've been looking at. People feel like he's a name that could fit the squad. I think we could go a number of ways with the final spot. I think the Knicks might wait a little bit longer, but Jeremy Sohan is a name that the Knicks reportedly have interest in as well. So that could be a pickup. That could be a really solid pickup. Not known as a shooter or offensive-minded guy, but obviously we love what Diawara's bringing and Alvarado's bringing on that side of the table. Yeah, Chris Scotty's like, and Jose is the enforcer role. Like I said, you don't need to be no big guy. We ain't getting into fights. Let's be real. We ain't looking to get suspended, man. All of us who've been through the ringer since 1997, and when you see a Knicks player leave the bench, right, it brings back bad memories. But having said that, man, you want to foul our guys, you want to play dirty, we can push back, we can fight back. And that's what it's gonna come down to, I think, in the playoffs, not taking a step back. Because look, we got some mild-mannered guys. A lot of people love to chirp. They like to pick on Karl Anthony Towns. They like to push around Jalen Brunson. Well, we're going to need some guys to protect them as well and let them know, y'all can't be doing that to our best players, man. Jose Alvarado, he'll take a suspension if he has to. Now, we don't want it to happen, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do. If push comes to shove, we'll see what happens. But man, that Detroit matchup is something that's going to be major spicy. But look, overall, back to the court, the Knicks played champagne basketball, man. Right, champagne basketball tonight. It was 41 assists. It was shooting hot from downtown. It was playing with an elite speed and pace. Great cutting, player and ball movement. And look, we didn't have much to defend because Philadelphia only put up, 89? 89 again. So we held Boston to 89 the other night, 89 tonight as well, man. So we can buckle down, we can lock down when we need to. And obviously, last night, we throw it in the trash, right? We flush it. Indiana, they love to get up against us. That was their Super Bowl. That was their Game 7 NBA Finals for Indiana last night. And we just simply didn't show up. We looked past them early, and then we found ourselves in that dogfight. But on the second night of a back-to-back, to hit the road and show up like we did, we take the split. Yeah, it is what it is, right? I'm not going to be mad at a split. You want to win both games. Obviously, furious to lose to Indiana, because we hate to lose to them. But you also love to see us beat Philadelphia as well. And look, they had some guys playing tonight. They had Kelly Oubre, they had Maxey, they had VJ Edgecombe as well. But we had 24 assists on 29 made shots at the half. So that also lets you know how efficient and how excellent the Knicks were. Mohamed Diawara getting major minutes, and Alvarado likes that corner three. Al Tango says GTA went beast mode in Philly. Welcome in Ernest Cameron, Glenn Jones. Great to see you, fam. On last night, yeah, give us your thoughts. Al Tango says, I think last night was an anomaly. We took Indy too easy, and we thought it was an automatic win. It wasn't. Yeah, I think, and I just want to sort of keep it more X's and O's. In terms of last night, I think we tried, obviously, in the second half. We knew we were in a dogfight, so it wasn't really effort. It was, they've got guys that can dribble, pass, shoot, and pull up threat off the dribble with Siakam. with Nemhard and Neesmith. And once you get hot, it's tough to stop. They were an incredible rhythm. And it wasn't a great coach game by Mike Brown. He let Josh Hart guard Siakam, I think, for way too long. I would have tried the young kid Diawara on Siakam. And then also, if that didn't work, then I would have brought the hard double last night, guys. I really feel like Siakam, once he gets his, 2 feet into the paint, once he's on the block, he's hard to stop with the little turnaround, fade away. And I thought we should have brought the hard double. But the other guys were in rhythm by then, and I just thought we were in a dogfight. And look, you take away but 3 sloppy possessions from Brunson, we probably still win the game in regulation. But also the second rule of thumb is I don't take a win or a loss too seriously if you're missing 3 rotation players, like major rotation players, because if it's 1 or 2 rotation players, it's like, okay, some teams and most teams have got injuries, but when it's 3 rotation players, anything can happen. And obviously Indiana are missing Tyrese, they were missing Toppin, and they didn't have Ivica Zubac, their brand new acquisition for Mathurin. But at the end of the day, like, they don't really rely on Tyrese Halliburton to score. There's games where he has 0 points or 5 points. He's more of a distributor. But they've got those other guys, the weapons with Neesmith, Nemhard, and Siakam, and we just didn't slow them down early enough. But like I said, we flush it because it's 1 of 82, and we showed what we can do tonight against this, a decent team, also not at full strength. So we try not to get too carried away. And then what awaits us, guys, after the All-Star break? Feb 19, man, circle on your calendar. It is the Detroit Pistons coming in to Madison Square Garden. That is going to be big, right? But more minutes for Diawara. I want to see him guard some of the other team's best defensive players, right? I'd love to see it because Diawara is trending up, man. I'm buying all the stock. Paula, great to see you. It says, I would feel better about the game had we won yesterday. Yeah, I can understand. It just, the team was imbalanced, and we are a top heavy team in terms of, when you're missing a couple of our best defensive players, we are vulnerable. And look, you could take yesterday as frustration, but it was also a wake-up call. We can't take no one too lightly. This is the NBA, and we got a target on our back, right? Teams are coming to take our head off. Right, it don't matter who they are. We've had a lot more bad losses last season, I feel, but we've had a couple of bad losses this season to the Mavericks. In terms of lesser teams, we managed to take care of Washington, but last year we lost to Utah. That was a bad loss as well. But yeah, we can't take any game for granted. When we're missing some key defensive players, Mike Brown has to coach a better game. He has to understand, okay, who have I got that is a defensive type player still, and we need to mix and match these lineups better. I felt like Diawara was underutilized last night. Look, I'm sure Mike Brown will own it as well. Brunson owned it, and he got to work tonight, right? Mitchell Robinson back, second night of a back-to-back. That is also why we need to just, be chill and not get too caught up in, a bad loss, because when Mitch didn't play, okay, he would have been healthy enough to play, but we've got to see the bigger picture, guys. We are sitting Mitch on the first of a back-to-back so that he can be healthy later in the playoffs. And that is something we didn't do last season. So I do think that's going to come back later in the season and help us out. I think that's going to pay dividends because we're thinking the long goal, We're thinking the long road. We ain't thinking about, a meaningless night against Indiana regular season when we're in a good position, right? If we're only 5 games over 500, then there needs to be more urgency. But we are 15 games over 500. So we've done the heavy lifting, the way I like to think about it. Yeah, we can kind of play around a little bit to help the players, stay healthy. In terms of Mitchell Robinson, like, it's a perfect example of tonight. Too. Limitless YouTube TV says it's crazy how good we do when Brunson is focused on getting his teammates involved. Great game from us. Yeah, definitely. Look, Brunson's a student of the game, and yeah, he owns it. Last night he owned it in the locker room. He was too trigger happy last night. And look, a part of me, after I cooled down after last night, I'm thinking like, why did he, why was he so antsy last night to, trigger happy? Because obviously we got sent home by Indiana twice, and he did take that matchup personally. So he's got to understand, and play to the strengths of his teammates and do better, getting those guys easier shots. Um, uh, Jason asks, is Brunson overrated, do I think? Um, Look, I feel like he's human. I think some people can overrate Brunson. I don't. From where I see, I don't overrate Brunson. He's definitely a number one option. He's earned that respect. He's earned that billing. Not to say he can't have bad games. Kobe Bryant shot his team out of games sometimes. It just happens. You don't want it to happen often, and fortunately, it doesn't happen too often. But it's just a reminder that he is human, and he needs to be humbled. What does Michael Jordan say? What's that great quote? Um, I learned more from my losses than my wins. You know what I mean? Michael Jordan won basically 90% of the time, but he learnt the most from when he lost, when he failed. So you got to be humble, and you got to understand, how you can be better. But obviously, you love their. These guys all got egos. They all got confidence, and they wouldn't get to where they're at without that level of confidence. But sometimes it can get a little too carried away. Like, for example, I have noticed they're starting to find Mitch a lot more on the lobs. So shout out to that. Mitchell Robinson's been scoring, I think, more this season. We see tonight, Mitchie finished with 11 points. Perfect. Only put up 3 field goals, but he got to the line 5 of 8. We didn't really see that a lot last season. Like, I think the more Mitch plays, obviously, the more points he's going to put up, more foul shots. But yeah, double-digit points. That's all I ask for Mitchell Robinson. Double guy, double rebounds, double points. I think we are looking for Mitchie on the lob, but obviously Tyler Kolek's a guy that is a bit more of a pass-first point guard. We'll see more what Alvarado and Deuce look like, playing together. Yeah, I've said recently, I do think Karl Anthony Towns, you see good game from him, we usually win, man. Cat is the barometer, in my opinion. OG didn't play tonight. Macau played solid, but obviously wing stop, super important, but so is Cat on both sides. If he's not fouling too much and he's disciplined and he's scoring efficiently, then we've got an excellent chance to win any game, man. Doesn't matter who we're playing. You see, he's unselfish as Cat. He's a guy who, does like to pass, but he does also have some tunnel vision as well. But Cat is a lot more engaged when he is getting the rock. We do know Cat wants to play a larger role. It's still something the team's trying to figure out, Maybe this all-star break, these guys might get in a couple of practices. I don't know, after they return. We will talk about, the Sohan situation. I think he's currently got not a major injury, but I do think he'll be healthy to play this season. But yeah, he's available. Chris, why did the Spurs drop Sohan? Well, it's more of a case of he's got the option and a $9 million option, and I think San Antonio didn't want to pick it up. That salary, they've got obviously a lot of young guys, and look, they worked together with Sohan to try to find a new home, and so they cut him. They cut him free, fam. So we'll talk about that in a second after we're just done reviewing this game. But also some other news here. Amari Stoudemire, Blake Griffin, Doc Rivers among the nominations, the finalists for Naismith Hall of Fame. So just wanted to bring that up, fam, because, once a Nick, always a Nick, man. Amari Stoudemire, I think, is headed to the Hall of Fame. Great to see that. And hopefully Stat can get his name, man, into the Hall. But yeah, man, Jeremy Sohan's been cut. And Suns and the Knicks are among teams who had trade talks for a Jeremy Sohan. So where there's smoke, there's fire. I think the Knicks had discussions about a trade for Jeremy Sohan. So we'll talk about that and his fit, right? I'll give you my thoughts should the Knicks look to bring in Jeremy Sohan. But here are some other names also potential buyout candidates, right? Cole Anthony, Marvin Bagley, the third, Kevon Looney, Middleton we can't pick up because of his salary, right? But look, that is a situation where I think the Knicks are going to be looking to add a veteran. Let's see who fits best. Yeah, Jose with the walk off, man, he was feeling good. The crowd was into it in this one, and we heard the chants. We heard the Jose chants, and his play, man, spoke 1,000 words tonight. Glenn, man, salute CT and chat. Our season is weird. Lose to the bad teams, destroy the great teams. I was in the gym beating them weights up while the Knicks were beating the Sixers up. Yeah, you love to hear that, man. Definitely, Yeah, you sounded confident. First quarter, we kind of feel like we know what Knicks we're going to get in that first quarter. And Mike Brown had them prepared tonight. Good bounce back. This is why I say you don't overreact to one specific game, because in the playoffs, guys, right, you have a chance to respond immediately. It's a 7-game series, right? And to pack the Knicks up, you're going to have to beat us 4 games out of 7. That's what I'm really looking at. Anyone can beat anyone on any given night, man. Sometimes we go to work, we don't have it going. Sometimes it's just not your day. Sometimes you get out on the wrong side of the bed, or on the way to work you spill your coffee. It just doesn't feel like a good day. That doesn't excuse an effort or lack of effort, but sometimes it just ain't clicking. Now the Knicks tried to rescue last night, but it was a little too late. They didn't make some good decisions, and execution came into it. But I think it's valuable in terms of learning and learning lessons, not to take teams too lightly, especially when they've got some killers. Them boys, Neesmith, Nemhard, they love putting on a show. Respect to them. It's competition. I'd rather we not just breeze through the regular season and then get punked like Cleveland. Right? Cleveland were untouchable in the regular season. Then what happened? The moment they hit adversity, they couldn't recover. They just weren't built to handle some adversity. What we're building right now is character. It's character, it's adversity. High of losses, wins and losses, and demoralizing losses, and jovial wins. But we've got to learn how to put it all together, for 4 quarters, right? AJ, says we took our indie frustrations out on the Sixers too. Yeah, that's what's going to happen in the playoffs. If we let's say we succumb to a bad loss, it could be a buzzer beater. We're going to be tough to beat 4 out of 7, because we do have the good mentality of bouncing back, and we do have the quality of playing good on the road as well. Yeah. I'm a little bit more worried about our home games in the playoffs. Let me know if you guys agree, because we've had some letdowns at home at MSG. Obviously, game 1 against Indiana, but then game 3 in first game in Indiana, Karl Anthony Towns puts on his Superman cape, or he becomes Cat Panther in game 3 against Indiana. On the road in Detroit as well was heroic. So yeah, something got to gel at home. I think there's a lot of pressure. I think they love putting on for the crowd. The opponent loves to put on for the MSG crowd as well. That's the problem the Knicks got to deal with when it comes to big games, man. Everyone want to show out at MSG. You got Celebrity Row. You got people's favorite actors. You got beautiful women in the crowd. You got the world's best fans. The spotlight. Everyone's feeling the city. Yeah, it's important we take care of games at MSG. Now, if let's say Detroit finished number 1, we finished second, we face them in the Eastern Conference Finals. Well, game 1, game 2 is going to be on the road to start the series. So that could be interesting. So we've got the Jill Very salute. Salute CT. Jose Alvarado signing is reminiscent of the Derek Harper signing in 1994 as well. You know what, man? Great minds think alike. We had AEP talk about that as well. And yeah, you got the defensive-minded Nous, the stealing, the ability to guard up at a high level. Just a savvy player. as well. BK New York, stand up. 1982, Brooklyn, stand up. Yep, great win, man. We're riding high on this one. Great little sign-off to head into the All-Star break. How y'all going to rate the season so far? Give me a grade, and I'll give you my grade. I'm going to give the grade a solid B+. Because there's been some things where I'm still not 100% convinced about, and that's why I'm not giving it an A, but I do think B+ so far. Considering we've, dealt with some injuries, we've integrated a brand new coach, the Yabu signing hasn't been working out, Clarkson signing's been up and down, so there's been some adversity, and there's been some things not go our way, and there's been some bad losses, as you'd expect. But to sit here, say we're fully healthy, basically, I mean, outside of Deuce McBride, which is a bit of a bummer, but to say that OG's obviously, looking to come back pretty soon, and Mitchell Robinson's healthy, I think a B+ on the season so far, I think is a fair grade. Now, yeah, let's talk about potential fit, right? Because Diawara, right? Mohamed Diawara is playing at a really high level, man. He surprised me. He surprised a lot of us, right? Diawara put up 5 of 10, 4 of 8 from downtown again, shooting over 40% on the season, right? So he was basically shooting, where are we at? Actually, no, I tweeted this out. I was looking for the comment, but I believe, I'm going to bring this up now. Diawara is shooting 24 of 57 on the season, right? 24 of 57. That was at some point during tonight's game, and he's 4 of 8 tonight. So put him in the 3-point contest, man. I'm serious. I mean, what a pickup. What a pickup it is, Mohamed Diawara, right now. Efficiency on volume, man, 4 of 8. He looks confident from the corners, and obviously his ability to guard multiple positions is invaluable. 20 minutes tonight, plus 19 with 2 assists, a steal, and 5 rebounds. That's stuffing the stat sheet, guys. So with that, we lean towards that Jeremy Sohan conversation. Some people are saying Jeremy Sohan isn't necessary. Where's he going to get minutes? You've got Diawara playing at a high level, right? So I'll give you my thoughts on that in a second. But the grades, Ricardo gives it a B-. Okay, that's fair. I could tell you're kind of a little bit down on parts of the season, and maybe we haven't turned it up. Buzzer's gone with the B. Also, similar boat. James is a bit more pleased with the season so far at the B+. Jason, the autism boy, also 100% CT, giving it a B+. Definitely. I don't think anyone's going to give the season an A so far, because that means there's not too much room for improvement. And it's also a silver lining, guys. If you are underwhelmed on the season, that means there's a lot more room for improvement at the end of the day. You want to be peaking right towards the end. Marathon, not a sprint. I was just listening to the Bill Simmons podcast, good podcast, talking about, Adam Silver and, a lot of issues with the league right now. He's adamant it needs to go to a 70-game season, right? For players to stay more healthy, for these matchups to be more intensity, or more intense, and also for, get the playoffs started earlier, perhaps. You know what I mean? So it is a bit of a slow grind, man. The regular season is a marathon. You want to see the best players on the court, towards the end of the season, and I'm all for shortening the season. I don't mind 65, right? Maybe you integrate, more of a, that in-season tournament. Maybe you expand that a little bit, give out some other prizes, draft picks. Maybe you could have a whole week off as well, and then maybe you could start the play-in situation earlier, get the playoffs started earlier as well. Remove some back-to-backs as well. Chris Goddy's gone with the B. El Tango's gone with the B+. Accurate, we've had many shortcomings too. AJB to B+. Shay's gone with the B+. Glenn Jones with the B minus. Yep, a lot of very similar grades, fam. And obviously, look, Cat, we're not getting the best out of him. I don't think it's been it hasn't been Brunson's best season. Don't know if he's just, getting older. Not saying he's in decline, but usually when you get older, you stop peaking. Like every year, Brunson's just been peaking. We'll wait to see what happens in the playoffs, but maybe he's just at his, at his summit in terms of at the top of his game. Buzzer says CT is pace our key to success. One of them, definitely one of our major, I would say 5 keys, speed and pace, but it's also dictated about how we're being defended, fam. We need a counter to how we're getting defended. But by bringing another ball handle in Jose Alvarado, that is an ability to counter what some teams are doing as well. And we haven't really played the double big lineups a lot. Look, Huck Porty is the 3rd string backup. Maybe they are a little, concerned about, playing Mitch and Cat too much together. If we do pick up another big, that'll let me know that, the Knicks might be serious about, playing more of the double bigs. But yeah, guys got to rest tonight, which is good. Not that they really needed any extra rest because we're now in the All-Star break. And we're not back at it till Feb 19, next Thursday, fam. So we get basically a 7-day rest. Brunson and Cat, they're not going to be doing too much in the All-Star game. Ricardo on the buyouts. Yep, so leaning into the Jeremy Sohan conversation now, guys. Look, you love what Diawara is showing. And Ricardo says buyout pickup option should be Bagley first, Kyle Anderson second. Yeah, I got no problem with those names. I think Bagley would be a good fit. Kevon Looney, Robert Williams if he gets bought out. There is talk that teams are waiting until after March 1st. So that's where we kind of lean into the Jeremy Sohan situation now, which is basically fluid. March 1st is the cutoff for every player to get bought out and still be playoff eligible. If you get bought out after March 1st, you cannot play in the playoffs, right? So that means if anyone's serious about joining a new team and playing a meaningful role, they will ask to get bought out before March 1st, right? Well, it doesn't matter when they join their new team. They could join their new team on the final day of the season as long as they're cut before March 1st. Now, Kyle Anderson and Bagley, I don't think have been cut yet, but I think it's imminent. So yeah, I like those names. But yeah, on the Sohan situation, like it's tough because I don't watch, San Antonio, too much. There's been talk about his game regressing a bit, and being a non-factor offensively, can't shoot, can't do too much. His first season was great. I think most Spurs fans admit his first season was great. So whatever's happened, he could have lost confidence, maybe sophomore slump. There's enough there for me to sort of, be intrigued with a Jeremy Sohan. Would he be my number one option right now? He'd be probably in the top 5. I'm not going to be mad if we pick up Sohan because I do see, a role. I do see a role for Jeremy Sohan in terms of like, you need extra size in certain matchups. Like last night, great example. Like some games we might not need Jeremy Sohan, and that's the argument some people make. But then you also look at last night. It's like, okay, Josh Hart's too small to guard Siakam. Alvarado was our first pickup. He's a smaller guy. Diawara, Mike Brown, for whatever reason, didn't try Diawara on Siakam too much. So maybe he doesn't want to put him, into the deep end too soon. But that's where, you do lean into a Jeremy Sohan in terms of a specific matchup. What are some other matchups for him? Well, he could guard maybe Cade Cunningham. That's a plus. He could guard possibly Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. Again, I'm not sure how bad he is offensively because I haven't watched him a lot this season. But again, low expectations, high hopes. That's the way I'm going into this situation with a buyout. Because anyone that gets bought out has got some kinks, they've got a little, chink in their armor or whatever. They've got a skeleton in their closet, whatever it may be, man. If you've been bought out, it means if it ain't just for financial reasons, then it means something, there's some holes in your game, but that don't mean that you might not be able to find a role on a squad. I mean, Marvin Bagley's been passed around like a blunt in terms of he's been on about, I don't know, plus 8 to 10 teams, but there's still teams interested. There's some other, names out there, obviously, that have been around. I mean, Chris Paul, 2 years ago, people would have been crying out for us to pick up Chris Paul. Now, seems like teams are hesitant now because he comes with some baggage. And we obviously don't need Chris Paul. I'm just using, his skill set as an example, his name and profile. But yeah, look, I wouldn't be mad with us picking up someone with the size. Obviously, it's been talked about to death. Size that can guard 3s, 4s, or 5s. I'll be down for that. I don't think we need any more 1s or 2s. There's more than enough bodies to go around. If you are keeping Clarkson, if you are gonna buy out Clarkson, then I'd be down for looking at some other, prolific scorers as well, possibly, because I don't really want to talk too much about the Deuce McBride situation because we are weeks and weeks away from understanding, his timetable and return. They say 6 to 8 weeks, but he's just had the surgery, so we've got to be patient. Got to see, him rehab on track, get on the court, on the practice court, and do his thing. But we can't. I've learnt we can't bank on Deuce McBride returning as the same kind of player because we just don't know. So, you either keep Clarkson or you swap him out for another guy that could maybe play the 2 guard and be a scoring threat. And then maybe, you look at the Hayward Highsmiths or the Jeremy Sohans or the Matisse Thybulls or the Kyle Andersons of the world, and you look towards that, fam, for the wing size or help. Now, look, Huck Porty's had some solid minutes recently. Last night, wasn't really much to write home about, but again, it wasn't as bad as it was against Detroit. But look, obviously, Huck Porty, man, it's a gamble. Whatever happens in the playoffs, if we don't, add more depth to the big man spot, then we are pinning our hopes on, Karl Anthony Towns staying healthy through 3 or 4 rounds, hopefully, God willing, and Mitchell Robinson as well. Now the playoffs are like a brand new season. It's a battle, 16 games, 4 round gauntlet, where series are going to go 6 or 7 games. A lot of these series, I feel, because the East is going to be tricky. It's going to be tricky because the NBA loves to referee certain games different ways to extend the series and keep things spicy. So we got to stay healthy. So yeah, in terms of Sohan, look, I wouldn't be mad. I would definitely consider it. I could see a particular role with him and Diawara. It's just a case of like, you still need insurance. Now Sohan might want to play all the time, and that's up to him to decide if he wants to do that. But the Knicks could sell him on, look, you're going to be the 10th or 11th guy. Some nights he might play, some nights he might not. We are dealing with some injuries. You're the next man up. You might be the next man up if you get an injury. We'll see what happens. The same got to be said for any big man. If any big man comes to the Knicks, they got to understand that, like, hey, I'm third string. Like I'm not getting minutes unless Mitch or Cat aren't, playing or, pick up foul trouble. Al Tango likes the Highsmith pickup instead of Sohan. Ricardo says no player under 6'9" for the buyout. Yep. So you're strictly all about that size. Buzzer says if not, Mitch and OG will get injured, but when? We need a big and a wing as well. It's not if Mitch and OG will get injured, but when. Look, yeah, you don't want to be pessimistic or anticipate any injuries. But yeah, you got to pray for the best, hope for the worst. Pray for the best, hope for the best. Sorry, pray for the worst. Oh, I totally butchered that again. You pray for the best, prepare for the worst, is what I'm trying to say, fam. You guys know what I mean. Prepare for the worst. Yeah, you got to be prepared. Roster building, executives, this is where they earn their money. But look, we're certainly in a good position with Diawara, the way he's playing. Like, there's no reason that I'm saying that you shouldn't back this man. You should fully back Muhammad Diawara and play him now as much as possible in readiness for the postseason, right? Because anyone we bring in that's new, it's also a gamble. We haven't seen him in our system. He could look like Yabul Sele again. He could not acclimate for whatever reason, or might be slow picking up. It is towards the end of the season now. So yeah, anyone we pick up, I'm not fully like banking on playing and making a major difference. It's just whether it be insurance, depth, or just a fit, fitting a need that this squad currently has, trying to fill as many holes as possible. Right now, I do see a hole with sort of a backup wing. Despite Diawara getting minutes, we still are vulnerable defensively. Neesmith and Nemhard, couldn't be slowed down last night. Bridges didn't have a great defensive game. Hart hasn't really been a great defender for 2 years now, if I'm being honest. Hart hasn't been a great defender. He can be solid on a certain night and depends on the matchup. But at 6'4", Hart's better off the ball, crashing the glass. He's not going to lock you down. So there is a hole, there is a need in terms of guys getting downhill against us. Pete says Huck needs minutes. That's all. I think that's a point. I think if they can trust him more and play him more, then yeah, I'm sure he'll look more serviceable. It's just against like Detroit, Beef Stewart, Jalen Duran, he did struggle against Detroit in the other game most recently, but then he's had some good performances as well against some decent opponents too. So, if Huck Porty can stay healthy, maybe the club does believe in him as the third option, able to step in when needed. Cutting Clarkson, Ricardo, that could still be on the table up until March 1st. There was a lot of conversations with Jeremy Sohan's camp and the Spurs. They went back and forth, and then they came to the conclusion to cut Sohan today. We all know Clarkson. I haven't really talked about it much, but yeah, he's been expressing his opinions on social media, clapping back at some fans that he feels, doesn't like what they're saying or feels some disrespect. He needs to be more professional and try to bite his tongue and refrain from reading all that junk on social media. That's just people's opinion. You're never going to change everyone's opinion, right? You should try to change their opinion on the court. I always look at it like this, and I ain't a player, and I know some of these players got thin skin, but you should always look at it like any shade you get from a fan. It's from a place where they just want to see their team win. They ain't most of them ain't making it personal. They just if you're playing poorly, they're going to let you know. If you're playing well, they're going to praise you. So all you need to do is just focus, play well. If you don't like criticism, now if they're getting personal about your family or some wild disrespect, then I completely get it. But that's when you just need to block. You just need to turn it off. You're a professional athlete. Just stick with your teammates, stick with your family, chill when you're off days, and then get to work during practice, and the rest will take care of itself. Buzzer, what is Jeremy Sohan good at? Jeremy Sohan is most notably good at guarding up multiple positions, switchability, and he's a good rebounder as well. And he's rugged. He's got a good build. He can bang. He might be able to bang with Isaiah Stewart a little bit. He'll definitely be able to give Jaylen Brown some physicality. and check him a little bit. I do think about Cade Cunningham a lot. Not gonna lie, guys, he's not keeping me up at night, but I am thinking, okay, how are we gonna just thinking ahead? How are we gonna guard him and do a better job? Because I don't think we've done a great job guarding Cade Cunningham. Uh, I respect Cade Cunningham for the player, the pedigree he has coming up, #1 overall pick, and the talent. But I'm not high on his game in terms of his go-to moves and his bag, right? Him, Jason Tatum, and Jaylen Brown. I don't think they've got much of a bag, to be honest. They simply use their physicality and they lower their shoulder to get to back you down and get to your spot, to get to their spot, right? They ain't doing anything special, to be honest. Like Cade Cunningham doesn't really have a great jump shot yet. It's not lethal, and he doesn't have no silky smooth go-to moves either. It's not like he's gonna razzle dazzle, cross you up, step back, fade away. You don't have a bag like DeMar DeRozan offensively. So guarding Cade Cunningham, I think he's just all about using his physicality and his size. And OG Anunoby hasn't been great, guarding Cade at that matchup because he is a little quicker. We could be looking at someone who can, slow him down a little bit more. Maybe you put a smaller body on him to try to pick his dribble. That'd be risky. Maybe you need to double team a little bit more. Old 2B, 28B, yeah, Chris Boucher. Chris Boucher would be a good pickup, in my opinion, as well. Thing is, he's a bit of an in-betweener, a power forward, big man, but yeah, he can use his length to shot block. Yeah, Jason, I see you. Appreciate you coming through. Altango feels like Sohan can shoot the three. Look, it's not bankable at the moment. Again, things could change in a new system. We look at some of the other names come through. I mean, Hart is not known as a shooter. He's shooting 40% on the season. So, Beauchamp, I'm not high on Beauchamp, to be honest, fam. I think, yeah, Beauchamp, we got a good look at him. Any guy that's been in our system and we've let them go, then I'm done with that in terms of I've trust the organization. They've brought him in, they've had a look, and I'll look to new guys, not retreads. Now, I hope Beauchamp can find success. I hope he can stick somewhere. He does have the tools, but yeah, we're still got to see him put it all together. And so, look, we're on the pathway to a championship, and anyone we bring in might not have a role, might have a small role, or might end up finding major role if injuries and things happen. But we need to bring in someone that I think has done enough in the league where it's they've got a particular skill set that we can bank on. No more question marks. So what I've got here, guys, is basically a 3-man depth chart, 3-man rotation lineups, where the central is the starting 5. To the left is what I feel like should be our 5-man, reserve lineup, a 5-man bench lineup per se. Lineups mix and match, but just a 5-man depth backup lineup with Alvarado, Deuce, Shamit, Diawara, and Mitch. And then to the right is anyone that's just waiting on an opportunity, situational, mop-up duty, whatever it may be, injuries. They're waiting for their opportunities. I put Clarkson there because we're kind of still, we're still trying to find out and wait to see what kind of role Clarkson has when Deuce McBride's back. Clarkson's probably just filling in now until Deuce is back. When Deuce is healthy, I don't think Clarkson is going to factor in permanently. He might have, different nights where he can get off the bench, but I think I'm good with that 10-man unit. You guys let me know how do you feel with that 10-man unit, right? Now, obviously, McCullough is on the 2-way still, Trey Jemison, and I haven't got Dylan Jones on this thing. Those guys can't play in the playoffs, so I'm expecting those guys to stay on the 2-way, and we bring in a vet. We'll bring in a veteran that'll take that 15th spot, and so there'll be no more available spots after that. for McCullough or Jemison or Dylan Jones, to play in the playoffs. That is if they don't cut someone else. Huck, I can't see Huck getting cut right now unless they can make an instant upgrade at his position. Again, he's the big man depth, and so we're not going to cut him unless we've got someone like Marvin Bagley, Robert Williams, someone like that coming in, Chris Boucher, maybe Andre Drummond wants a buyout, so I do think Huck's going to stick around, but Pacome Dardier is under cost control. I don't think the Knicks are just going to cut him right at the moment because, look, in the future, he could be an asset in a trade, a stash. You don't really sell a stock when it's at its lowest. You try to get some of that value back up, I think, in the future before you end up cutting Dardier. And look, Clarkson could be that conversation had, but he might be down with just sticking around and being on reserve, waiting for his opportunity to help this team try to win a title. But with that said, I guess the good news is we don't have to cut anyone. We can still add the 15th guy at any time. And it's just a matter of, who fit in the picture. Where's the minutes coming from? Or are they just going to be a guy who's just going to come to New York and be down for the ride, try to help us win a championship? Al Tango says we need more wing depth. Yeah, I think you can never have enough. Look, Diawara deserves top billing. I think he deserves the reserve wing spot to keep playing with Landry Shamet. When they're playing well, it looks great. I do have concerns, against some of the matchups with size. Like I said, Tatum, Brown, Cade Cunningham, that kind of lineup. Paolo Banchero. But again, OG is going to take a lot of those matchups. But yeah, having some backup, I think, is key. Buzzer beater AP in the building. Buzzer says Sohan sounds like Rodman. Insanity. I wouldn't go that far, but yeah, people like his skill set. Some of them hyping him up. He's unproven commodity at the moment in terms of playing regularly for a winning team. Back when he used to play more for San Antonio, they weren't really a prolific team. Since becoming prolific, he's kind of been out of their rotation. But we'll see, man. I do think the size, the ruggedness is key. Another rebounder, another guy who could guard on the perimeter a little bit. I think that's where we need to go. Alvarado's brought that much needed ball handling and pull-ups shooting threat. Landry's here, healthy. Diawara looks like a pull-up threat now as well. So Deuce McBride's return. Hopefully that all goes according to plan, fam. And we bring in an extra guy with size and some rebounding as well. Because look, the Cat Mitch thing, that's still a major question mark in terms of health and focus, foul trouble. Now, just before we get to this crazy stat, right? After last night, man, when Cat fouling out, a key thing to note is that Karl Anthony Towns, fam, is leading the league in offensive fouls, right? So you got to take this into all consideration, fam. If a guy like Cat is giving you a skilled guy, we all know what he's capable of doing, but if he's giving you whatever he's giving you offensively, but a lot of that is given back on the other side. Now, not just, offensive foul rate at a high level, he's leading the league, right? Is that sustainable? You guys let me know. If one of your starting 5 players that you're banking on a major level is leading the league in offensive fouls, right? You cannot gloss over that. He might be putting up points, he might be doing some good things, but if he's leading the league in offensive fouls, that's just giving away possessions back at a guaranteed rate, right? Because he ain't just, at a high number, he's leading the league in offensive fouls. So that's got to get corrected, right? That's going to come back to cost us. And Cat's focus is a major concern. His play is up and down. He can win us games, and he can have poor games. But I'm more worried about the focus. You know what I mean? I don't know if that's sustainable if one of your best players leads the league in offensive foul rate, right? because that's just giving away cheap possessions. Now, with last night's win from Indiana, right, they actually hurt themselves a lot. To put it into perspective, guys, with the upset win over the Knicks last night, the Pacers, their chance of keeping their own pick dropped down to 44%, right? So their chances of keeping their first pick dropped to 44% by beating the Knicks last night. So hopefully that does come back to bite. Man, that would be awesome if that came back to bite the Pacers too, because yeah, it was sickening to watch. But yeah, they were definitely major up for that game, man. Teams love to get up on the Knicks because we are the New York Knicks. Cole Anthony, yeah, a little surprised. I think fit, he was no longer required. Mark, that's up to the coaches to teach Cat not to make that crazy hook foul. They've been trying. Mark. Old habits die hard. I just think Cat's, again, skill set wise, one of the most skilled big men, and we know what he's capable of doing on a good night. But you cannot ignore the bad. And Cat is a low IQ player, right? In my opinion. Not a knock on his character, good character guy. I root for the guy. I hope it works out, man. But one example I'll give is like, remember when we had the big win in the playoffs and Cat sat down with Shaq, Ernie, and Chuck on Madison Square Garden floor? It was at the post game inside the NBA with Ernie, Chuck, and Shaq, and they sat Cat down, and Shaq goes to Cat, is like, "What? Why y'all keep doing? Why you keep hurting your team? You know, why you keep doing that dumb stuff?" And Cat just said, "Oh, look, I don't know." Like he legitimately didn't have an answer. He couldn't even give Shaq an answer. He's just like, "I don't know." It's like how can we be dealing with that? Right? You're a multi-millionaire playing at the highest level, hurting your team, and the best answer you got is, I don't know. I don't know why I'm hooking. I don't know why I'm offensive fouling all the time. Like that's low IQ. That lets me know that player's low IQ. You know, you got a Hall of Famer Shaq asking you the question. And after that, okay, we're coming to a brand new season. Have we seen it change? Have we seen it rectified? Absolutely not. Same thing again and again. Offensive foul, dumb stuff. You know, that's low IQ. So I don't think that's coming from a intent. I don't think it's coming from Cat wants to hurt the team. I don't think it's coming from he's trying to hurt the team. It's just low IQ. You know, it is maddening, like you guys see. It is frustrating. And, you know, I'm hoping, like Mark said, I'm hoping that the coaches can really, you know, change it, make him more aware, and, you know, hopefully, you know, hopefully it can work out, man. Hopefully it works out in the playoffs. I'm hoping more than anyone, fam, because I definitely want this to work out. I do think it's hanging on a knife's edge because I do think a series between. Look, I think we're going to take care of Philly, you know, Orlando, Miami, ATL, Raptors. I think, and anyone else that I'm missing, that's not Boston or Detroit. I think the only vulnerability we have is going to be against either Detroit or Boston. And so I think a series between those two teams is going to come down to focus. It's going to come down to execution and, yeah, not giving away, you know, foolish possessions, you know, locking up, locking down, and yeah, high IQ execution. So, look, Cat's been able to help Minnesota get to the Western Conference Finals. He's helped us get to the Eastern Conference Finals. Hopefully, if we can get all our defensive players healthy, hopefully that's enough. Hopefully that's enough. And look, Mike Brown could just coach, you know, with a tighter rotation. You know, play Mitch more in the dying moments for defense. You know, it's going to be a juggling act. I think that's just all it's going to come down to, fam. It's going to be a juggling act. Yeah, AP says he wasn't expecting that question. Old 28B says, I agree, low IQ player for sure. Nurkic on a buyout, fam. I'm not too sure about that. But yeah, anything's possible. Experience would be the pro for that one. Why in the hell is Cat falling after the layup? Asked Buzzer. I think, yeah, high center of gravity, fam. He's got a skinnier core, similar to Diawara. Those guys tend to fall over a lot. You look at Huck Porty and Mitch; they don't fall over as much. Cat arguing relentlessly with the refs is definitely low IQ, says Buzzer. Yeah, 100%. I think, look, Cat has taken a dent to his ego by getting traded by Minnesota. So that's been super tricky. Now we'll wrap up with this super chat. Just got to get to something that I've already had pre-scheduled. But AP, appreciate you for the super chat contribution, keeping the streets buzzing. AP says, I would ask Shaq why he got crossed up in the 95 final. I like that. Nice little clap back. And look, Cat maybe deep down he knows that, he knows what he's got to cut out. He just doesn't want to say anything too revealing on the broadcast. But yeah, look, overall, man, I'm an actions guy. Actions speak louder than words. He's got to correct that, on the floor, and teammates got to big him up as well. Look, for what it's worth, I do see Jose Alvarado having a really positive locker room impact. I think Jose Alvarado has been, really looking like he's been in Cat's corner. The more guys in Cat's corner, that's a good thing, because that could get him to come around and stay focused. That could, keep him in the, keep him going and staying focused. Like Glenn says, leading the league in offensive fouls is unacceptable. Definitely. Especially when it's damn near the same one all the time, the hooking foul. Now, defensive fouls is probably right up there, but he's probably not leading the league because, other guys are in the action on the perimeter. But offensive fouls are controllable because you're the one, causing the friction, fam. You're the one causing the offensive foul. So, yeah, that's the way that it goes, ladies and gentlemen. But we sign off with this, 35 and 20. We're at a B+ right now. Can we edge it up to an A- or an A? It's looking good, though. Jose Alvarado, man. Game of his life, right? It's a shame it wasn't at the MSG debut, but on the road, I'll take it. Because Eastern rival, letting these guys know what we're capable of. Now, we fill the final roster spot. We enjoy this All-Star break. We'll be doing some live stream content throughout the break as well, fam. And we'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.